So we have a trifecta of customization options with talent trees, with skill ranks, and with rune words.
Although Blizzard seemed to hit a home run with the inclusion of the OG skill tree, many fans, myself included, were initially puzzled by the new stat system which replaced the older attributes called powers in Diablo 4. Diablo has always been coined as an action role-playing game, and there are several recurring tropes that are expected to be present. Most importantly, the ability to augment your character's physical and mental traits. So why, after the controversy of Diablo 3's attributes, has Blizzard again abandoned their old fan-favorite formula in favor of something more obscure? How will it dramatically change how veterans of this series interact with character builds? And how did these new stats apply to both the gameplay and the lore? The good news is you can put away your wallet because you're not going to have to get a degree to figure this out. Instead, I'm going to break down the new powers system for you in Diablo 4. To understand Diablo 4's powers, we need to go back to the roots. All the way back in Diablo 1, Blizzard utilized a very classic system of handling attributes. It was easy to understand, and while more limited than other established RPG systems at the time, like Dungeons & Dragons, the attribute setup that Diablo 1 and 2 utilized were a great portrait of the idea that less is more. Initially, there were only 4 core attributes present: strength, dexterity, magic or energy, and vitality, which you could augment by either leveling them up directly or through gear, but each stat played its own key role in the development of characters. And it really wasn't rocket science. More strength means you hit good, more energy means more spells, bada bing, bada boom. But it was more than just the superficial. Anything from attack damage to hit rating or avoidance to mana and health were affected all by these 4 simple stats. It was easy to digest, streamlined, and definitely efficient. As a 10-year-old, I was white-gloved into the whole system, except I forgot about dexterity when it came to block. Now, Diablo 1 was definitely the basis of all things. Diablo 2 pretty much built on it and then buffed out the skill system. However, by the time of Diablo 3, when it rolled around and Blizzard North had been shut down, Blizzard Irvine took over Diablo 3's development and, by extension, some core game mechanics, such as the stat and skill system, and took it in a very different direction. First off, leveling up and dumping points into attributes was totally gone. Now it was completely tied to your weapons, armor, and other gear. And while only utilizing 4 stats, which included strength, dexterity, intelligence, and vitality, replacing energy/magic with intelligence, their function was boiled down to merely which class would utilize which attribute to influence the amount of damage they could deal. In essence, it was simpler. So instead of having each stat serving its own utility purpose, it simply became an exercise in how many points one could accumulate in a singular stat to build as much base damage, which would then further be augmented by a myriad of other stats that would appear on weapons and armor. For example, Wizard. Okay, add intelligence out the wazoo. All that the one stat is going to do is buff up the damage. The end. There's Diablo 3, you're welcome. Now, this was widely argued to be an oversimplification and generally a bad idea, but wherever you stand on this personally, it would appear that the developers of Diablo 4 have zero interest in pursuing that system either, opting for something completely different again. But what is Diablo 4's power stat system, and how do they function? Well, it seems that Blizzard intends to get totally away from the system completely. No more attributes have been shown. Hardly any of the gear revealed in gameplay snippets of Diablo 4 thus far have shown any lean towards these classic RPG style statistics, with no additions to stats like strength, vitality, and so on. Instead, it would appear they plan to use a somewhat more intricate system on the surface called powers. However, these powers are A, more fluid, mode, as you're about to see, and B, couple with skills so that you can change your build. As stated, the development team refers to these new stats as powers. If you can wrap your head around the fact that these replace attributes, you're one step closer to understanding powers as a whole. And they do come in three very distinct categories. Now, angelic power increases the duration of all beneficial effects, like self buffs or healing. That's it. Demonic powers increases the duration of all negative effects like debuffs, crowd control, or damage over time. Third, ancestral power increases the chance of on-hit effects, aka increased proc chance or proc coefficient. In a nutshell, angels versus demons versus ancestors or humans. This is the core story of Diablo, and they've decided that the powers will be representative of that. We will cover that in the lore later in the video. However, these new powers appear to be more directly influencing the nature of skills, allowing the player to take an approach to focus on more builds centered around either power, with each power ultimately affecting the nature of a skill itself. Ipso facto, you want to become a healer, you would really want that angelic power on all of your items, and that will couple with whatever you have in your skill tree. However, each power will be linked to various affixes, and certain levels of each power will unlock empowerment to various affixes. I know that sounds a bit jargony, so an example given which might clear this up states, an item may roll affixes with requirements, such as you need 50 demonic power required to, say, get an additional rank in devastation skill, 55 demonic power for an extra 25 fire resistance, or 60 demonic power for an additional 2 rank in the Char to Ash skill. Basically, you're going to have a wall of how much power you need to unlock X amount of skill buffs or boons. Now, it's also possible for items to roll with multiple affixes tied to various powers, and the player can unlock one at a time or utilize different levels to gain multiple benefits to skills, which work much more like they do in Diablo 3, consisting of skills that generate resources and skills that spend resources. I'm just going to simplify this because my eyes went cross-eyed when I reread it. You're going to want to focus on certain powers or multiple powers to help level up your skills. That's it, end of the day. Now, this seems a little bit complicated, right? Well, it actually does get really simple from here on out. These stats are going to be utilized to specify and augment any build that you want. And while I don't believe it will take away reliance on legendaries or set bonuses, it will absolutely serve to allow players to properly customize a character to their specific playstyle.
For legendary items and sets, the goal is to provide as much player choice and customization as possible when forming your end-game build. And in order to do that, the most important change in Diablo 4 is to make sure that legendary items are on equal or greater power level compared to set items in Diablo 4. This way, you'll have that full customization of picking every single slot which specific legendary power you want to use. So let's take a look at a simple example of customizing your playstyle through one specific simple skill in Diablo 4, as well as items that only modify that specific skill. But of course, we'll have a wide range of legendaries in the game. So this is teleport. As you can see, pretty straightforward. You teleport to the target location, like you just saw. Say you are struggling on the defense, then you can pick something like this up. Every time I teleport, I gain damage barrier. And this one, whenever I teleport, I create this rift on the ground. Whenever I stand in it, I gain increased critical strike chance. This next one, I can use teleport as much as I want now. It has no cooldown, but it's random, and I need mana to use it. And this last one, I can cast damaging lightning nova whenever I teleport. So let's check that out. So pretty straightforward. Let's try to equip the one that lets me teleport as much as I want. And now I've kind of turned my mobility skill into damaging skill at the cost of it being a little bit random. And I just want to stress once more that not all legendaries will work so specific to one skill. We'll have a wide range of skills ranging from legendaries that are generic and good for every type of build, legendaries that are good for specific categories of skills, and legendaries such as the ones that you see here.
Now that seems to be the crux of why Diablo 4 is doing this. Like I said, it is fluid if you want to move away from, say, a healer with the angelic power and then into someone who has crowd control and move to demonic or a mix. It's all going to be build based and heavily gear based as well, coupled with skills. Now other aspects have been revealed by the developers. Things like damage, defense, and other familiar character attributes like crit chance or crushing blow percentage, which will still be a thing when it comes to gear, but it would appear that this has also been simplified. Now, while the new power system doesn't appear to affect these factors unless the skill they influence do so, unlike previous games where a piece of armor could offer defensive properties or damage boosts as a weapon can, weapons and armor will only be influencing offense and defensive aspect respectively. So we will likely not be seeing armor with a key damage boosting stat or weapons with heavy resistances, unfortunately. Now this is all still in development and subject to change. For example, the item builds that were present during D4's showcase at BlizzCon had mixed attack and defense boosts, which is no longer the case as previously mentioned, but alterations to what appears to be a key system like powers won't likely change. Now, of course, I'd be remiss as Lord Ash if I didn't talk about the lore and how this affects the power system, or vice versa, how the power system affects the lore. As we've discussed in previous videos, like my most recent on the untold truth of Diablo 4's unconfirmed classes, we know there's a heavy connection between Diablo 4 and the stage set in the Sin War novels by Richard A. Knack. We already know that the denizens of Sanctuary are descendants of the offspring of Nephilim, beings whose essence in part is angelic and demonic, and it's also been established that the union of this influence created a third aspect when the Nephilim were born and they behaved much differently. Like the Worldstone, Nephilim could influence the world around them at will, without perception of alignment of order or chaos, or angel and demon. This ancestral power, we shall call it, would manifest in many varying ways, most obscurely by the Edirim during the Sin War. The descendants of the Nephilim are also able to take a side, so to speak, unlike Adria the Witch had once demonstrated that emphasis on certain aspects of power could ultimately change a Nephilim into something else. She herself would go on to even assume a demonic form by focusing on the aspect of demonic power. So what does this mean for Diablo 4 and the new powers? It seems that there is a strong emphasis on factions in Diablo 4, from the cannibals to the drowned to the triune and the Zakarum. Families and factions, the struggle for the power vacuum created by Lilith in her apparent join or die campaign is undoubtedly a large piece of the focus of Diablo 4, which is also something that was a heavy focus in the Sin War trilogy and has been made evident in the level of devastation to the local population through the secret acts of her cult of personality. Now the Nephilim are either being forced to choose sides, or as Kalan mused at the end of the Sin War, the Edirim would rise again, this time as their own masters. And this was even commented on by Tragul himself, Sanctuary's guardian, who can see the fates of all of Sanctuary, as it was meant to be. Now, not even Rathman knew what he meant. Perhaps he knew that this day would come to pass, the Nephilim no longer having the high heavens or burning hells to direct their paths, having been left to decide their own fates. Which way will they go? Well, maybe we will see factions themselves in Diablo 4. Wouldn't it be fun in PvP if you became so demonic you could join the powers of hell in some fashion? Perhaps angelic? Maybe ancestors, maybe there are 3 vying for power. It's unclear, but maybe we're overthinking it. Maybe just the Nephilim tapping into the various states of their essence is simply meant to be a gameplay mechanic and won't overtly influence the storyline. But again, the re-release of the Sin War and the focus on affecting Nephilim essence at the end of Reaper of Souls seems quite coincidental to the timing of Diablo 4. Whatever happens, it's going to be one hell of a ride, and I hope that you join me on Discord as we have over 400 Crusaders joining the cause. I would love to have you as we are going to ghetto stomp anybody that gets in our way. Lilith, angels, demons, humans, maybe not humans in real life. You're all my friends. Join the crusade. We'll be nice. It's a hard life, I promise. Well, I gotta work on my recruitment. That went off the rails. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to be notified of upcoming D3 lore play, Diablo 4 videos, and everything lore based in between. Thanks for watching, and until next time, traveler.